Now in this video I'm going to explain to you the function number 1, which is the reading of multiple coils. So before you can read multiple coils, of course you must write the coils, and in my previous video on function number 15 I have done exactly that. I've shown you how to write to a master, from a master to a slave device microcontroller, how to write certain coils. So please watch that video on function number 15 first of all, and then you can look at this specific video. But again, if you look at my hardware, this is what my hardware looks like. I've got a master microcontroller here, I've got a slave microcontroller here, I've got certain coils sitting here, which I need to write by using function number 15. So if I can look at my master microcontroller, I'm just gonna, what I'm doing in this specific program, as you can see here, before the while one loop, I'm gonna make use of writing data to slave microcontroller number 2, and let's say here I'm gonna put a value there of what can we put, something like 8. Let's write a value to the coils of, yeah, let's write 8, why not, which means actually only one coil will be switching on. Maybe I should switch on 3 coils. Let's rather put the E, value of E, which makes that E also. So I'm first going to write, starting at address, well, writing to address 01, the value of 0E. So E is actually 1110. So address number 01 is actually a value of 0, and so forth. Just remember again, if I talk about addresses in the slave unit, it's always one more than what we send from the master unit. So if we've got the value here, let me just write this down here just to clarify it. If I put 1110, this 0 we're talking about here, that will go to address number 1, and that will go to address number 2, and that will go to address number 3, and that will go to address number 4 of my coils. If I can just, again, I just want to show you here. As you can see here, my coils are sitting as from address. It will always start at 1, and then 2 and 3, and in our case up to 16. So that's where coils will be placed. So yes, I am going to write, first of all, quickly function number 15. I'm not going to explain it again. I'm going to write a value of E, which means that LED will be on, that one will be on, that one will be on, and that one will be off. That will be written to this specific slave microcontroller, where this one is actually address 01, and that is 2, and that is 3, and that is 4. These are the coils now. So as I've said, I'm not going to explain that one, but I'll only write it once. We've seen in the previous video that what will happen is the coils will be written, the data will be placed on port D of the slave microcontrollers, and the response from the slave microcontroller number 2 will just be that it was done. You do not get any specific values back. So, but function number 1, you want to specifically read what is happening on the coils, and I've said in my previous video, and I just want to emphasize that again. In function number 15, the data is actually written. The data sits in coils, array by the name of coils, and it's actually sitting in element number 0. That's where all 16 addresses are actually sitting in there, because when I talk about a coil address, it's actually a bit address. Okay, so let us go to, as I've said, this is what's going to happen. I will show you later on. I'm going to write that value, but now I want to more basically discuss what is happening on function number 1. Function number 1 is reading the coils on slave microcontroller number 2. So if I can just quickly go and see what will be transmitted. This is what function number 1, this is what will be transmitted. So in element number 0 you will send 02, which is the slave address, of course, and you will say, listen to the slave microcontroller. Remember, this program is for the master microcontroller. For the slave microcontroller, you will say, I want to do function number 1, and again we're going to send the address of 0000 because it must always be 1 less than the real address. So the real address that I want to basically read from is address 01, and I want to read 16 bits, although I know I've only actually using the 4 least significant bits. And as you will see here, we've seen it before, the UART send function will actually send these bytes one at a time. Slave address, let me just change that back. Slave address and then the function, etc. So it will actually send 6 bytes to the other side, and also function number 1 will be sent at the end of the day. So if I go to my master unit, we've seen, to my slave unit, we've seen that when data is received, this is my receive, the data will come in, and yes, it will definitely be for slave number 2, slave microcontroller number 2. And at some point you will see that there will be, the counter will be at 6. Remember, when 15 was sent, this value was 9. But in the case of function number 1, we've actually sent 6. Let me just close this. We've actually sent 6, and also function number 1, you'll find that in the second, which is number 1. 0 is the first, 1 is the second element. So when function number 1 is transmitted by the master microcontroller and the slave microcontroller number 2 is receiving these bytes, this is where this if function will actually become true. So again, just like before, the input address, I will combine those two, which in this specific case will be input address after combining this will be 0000, and if I increment that, it's actually 0001. And I must actually remove this. I've actually changed the program, so but this is not being used anymore. Let me just remove this quickly. The same here. Let me just remove that, otherwise it could be confusing. It was my old program which I've changed again. So yeah, this looks better. Good. So we know that this is now actually be referring to number 1. If I replace that in here, it's actually 1 minus 1, so we're actually sitting with element number 0 in the array by the name of coils. And coils is actually, if you scroll up in the program, you will see that coils, which is this one here, is an integer. So coils is actually an integer having 16 bits, which means in the case of coils, it will actually be 16 addresses. Good. So what I've done here, remember I have told you before in function number 15, when you get to this point, you are loading the value from the master microcontroller into coils element number 0. You'll display it here, that is function number 15, but it sits in coils element number 0. That's where the data sits for the 16 coils. It's sitting in there because it's an integer. So when I do function number 1, all I need to do is to say, okay, let's load this pointer, it's the same pointer again, with the address of, and we know by now, it's coil element number 0, which is actually addresses, bit addresses or coil addresses 0, well, let's rather say from 1 to 16. So in this case, it's actually loading element number 0 into that pointer. So I've got in this pointer, it's pointing to the correct addresses. So I can actually now just say, but just transmit it back. So here I am basically resetting the counter again, and I'm starting to load my array which I want to respond with. Sorry. So I'm going to respond again with a slave address. I'm going to say this is function number 1 transmitting back now, and the slave microcontroller will say there's going to be 2 bytes that will be sent. And as you can see here, what I've done here is I have said give now in function number 3, or sorry, in element number 3 of that response F1 array, the value pointed to by C0, which is the pointer, CO. And so we're actually saying place in this element what you see in coils element number 0. So the lower, which will what we will, because this, if we start transmitting, it's only 8 bits. The lower part of that 16 bits sitting in coils, the lower byte will be transmitted, which is actually the 4 coils starting at address 1, 2, 3, and 4. And with this one here, let me just remove that again, it's not necessarily needed there. And even though I am basically saying go to where this one is pointing to, go to that same one, that's the same element, and just move the upper byte to the lower byte position and then transmit that. What I will be sending out here is a bunch of zeros. I'm actually only interested, because we're only making use of 4, I'm interested in that one. That will definitely transmit the lower 4 bits sitting in coils element number 0. And then, as we've seen before, there will be some sort of a response. So in other words, this 5 bytes, the 5 bytes will be transmitted one at a time by placing the value in the data register and transmitting each and every of these bytes back to master microcontroller. What I want you to just look at is in element number 3 that will be transmitted back. That's where the 4 bits sits. Spelling mistake. Let me correct it. Yeah, and then here I'm just, of course, just clearing the array again, just cleaning it. So when we go to the master microcontroller, that means, yeah, let me just see if I receive data. This is my receive, and this is what I will, if when data is received, again, when the data comes in, this is what I will jump in here. If it was, I will actually jump in here if function 15 was received. That was, in other words, not this one. It was in the well, this one is also in this program. I will definitely get received, but I just want to focus on function number 1, which is the one I've just discussed now. So as I've said, remember 5, there will be 5 transmitted. Yeah, this is actually incorrect. You can see there's only 5. Oh, sorry, it is this 5, yeah, so that's fine. This is now sitting on the slave, Modbus slave 2, and I just want to also point out, just look here, on port B of slave 2, I'm just placing a 1, just to show it, for function number 1 was transmitted. Okay, so on the master microcontroller unit, there's the 5, it will be at 5, and now we've seen also that function number 1 will be the one transmitted. So if this becomes true, as soon as the master microcontroller received the 5 bytes, and it's from function number 1, it will go in here. And as you can see, I'm really interested only at this stage in the, well, let's call it the element number 3, which is containing addresses 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's the ones, and I'm also displaying that on port number B. And again, as you can see here, we're just clearing the receive array, and here we are just basically clearing the receive counter also. So let's have a look at this. So you'll see, let me just stop this. You'll see first of all function number 15, will be used to transmit from the master microcontroller to this one, and it will also change the coils here. And it will also then respond back and show 15 here and 15 there. But then number 1 will be transmitted in the while 1 loop the whole time. And you will see then this is going to change to be a 1 here, and this new data will then be displayed on the master unit. So you must just realize now that I'm first transmitting number 15 before the while 1 loop, and then I am basically reading what are the coil status. So there are actually two functions, the one before the while 1 loop, the one inside the while 1 loop, if function 1 is inside the while 1 loop. So let me just show you. There you can see it's E, that's 15, that's 15. There it's now requesting, and this one is giving back the slave unit is saying, listen here, function number 1 was now responding back, and as you can see here, look at this 1011, which is 1011. So this is function 1, which is now being transmitted back. So the master now knows exactly what's happening on the coils of slave number 2. And that, as we've seen, actually sits in an array by the name of coils in element number 0. That's where it sits. That's where the answer sits. So I can actually read I can read all the coils. Maybe I've got more coils. I can actually connect, if I've got space, up to 16 coils here, or even more, doesn't matter. If I've got space, I can go to hundreds if I really want to. But yes, so here you can see I have used 15 to write the data here, and once the data is written, it will be displayed here, and then I've used number 1 to actually ask the slave number 2, slave microcontroller number 2, what is the value, and I've collected that from coils, and I just transmitted it back, and now it's displaying there. So again, function number 1 is now used to read the coils. Good, that was how to read coils by making use of function number 1. Thank you.